Alright, that's it. I'm officially going Joker mode. Hello. The Mies that the stream watchers are more familiar with is probably going to come out a little bit more today, because pulling Nefer has made me go completely insane. For several reasons. And let me just give a little bit of context to those who don't watch the streams. I had made it pretty clear that not only was I not getting Nefer, but that I did not like her. And while that was initially true, I didn't like Nefer's kit when I first saw it. I knew that Flynn's had happened. So I was a little more open-minded, and as the beta cycles went on and after release happened, I grew to like her kit more and more. But I still ran with being a hater for a few reasons. Number one, it's funny. Unfortunately, it is just funny to lie to people. Number two, I wanted to see if I could replicate the luck that I got with Flynn's, because I got him fairly early on a 1/50/50, and as it turns out, it works. You heard it here first, folks. Doom posting your favorite units will guarantee that you get them early. And number three, so I could make a ham-fisted point about meta, because I was saying, oh, I don't want to get her, oh, I don't think she's interesting, oh, I think she's low pull value. But I also wanted to make sure I was saying that even though I was hating, it does not matter. Even if I don't personally like her, even if I don't think she's as powerful as other units, she's still too powerful to not clear content. With enough of the right knowledge and investment, you can make Nefer work on almost any account, given the free units available to anybody, and ideally one of the two units on her banner. The current state of new limited units in Genshin is, if you like them, pull them. Not only are the new units far more powerful than the old units were, in terms of raw DPS, in terms of things they can do with their kit, but the new content being put out is being tailored against older units and for them. I was doing a test run with this team in Abyss with a level 50 Nefer, so only level 4 skill as well. Other side, I played Flynn's Kokomi. Granted, it actually is a pretty nice build, but still, level 50 Nefer in a team where she is the hyper carry, she is the one dealing almost all of the damage. Other side, I played Flynn's best in slot team, but replacing Aino with Kokomi, because Aino's on the other side. Kokomi, well, she's on Serenade now, but she wasn't before. Kokomi was on her 2-piece EM build that I run her in Bloom. Inefo was 2-piece Tenacity, 2-piece Emblem. Sucrose had 4-piece VV, but she was missing a circlet, so her EM was lower than it should have been. And Flynn's, well, I thought it would be better to just keep his build together and show it to you for you to see for yourself. We're rocking Favonius Lance, so you know, that's actually a pretty solid option on him. It's not the worst thing in the world. And for artifacts, so what have we got? Okay. These units are so good and so pandered to that even if the one doing all the damage on the team is level 50 and the other one's team has completely fucked gear, they still wipe the floor with this content. Jump scare. Yeah, when I said you were going to be seeing stream Mies today, I bet you didn't expect to see the stream avatar come out. This is probably another thing that I'm going to do to indicate that this is editing Mies here. So, as it turns out, I did what I said I was going to do, and I went kind of Joker mode. So I've reworked this segment of the video. Behind me, you can see the Abyss clear that I just mentioned. This is not the original recording. I was doing my own testing on my own time for that. This is a re-recording that I did later on. Nefer has been nerfed. I have removed her goblet, so she has a little less EM and a little less crit rate, and I swapped her from Widsith to a level 70 Eye of Perception, so even though she's a little bit higher level, she has higher talent levels, she is doing, actually I think, less damage than she was in the original clear, but whatever. If anything, that just helps me make my point even better. You might notice it's a little bit sped up. I got done recording my voiceover and I hadn't nearly reached the amount of time that I had to cover up to cover this entire clear, so yippee, you get Hyper Abyss clear. An unedited version of this clear is going to be in this video's description if you want to check it out. To all the people saying, oh, of course you had an easy clear, you have all the shield units, you have the best teams in each slot. And it's like, yeah, that is the point of this, is to show it is still easy. These teams are comically underprepared. I don't have the right gear. I don't have any gear on some of the slots. My units don't have all the right stuff leveled, but just by having the right units and having a few things that give me at least a little bit of damage, I'm able to pretty easily clear this Abyss. I did this all one shot, and this actually was my second attempt at this. Not because I failed the first attempt, I just forgot to record. I did it first try both times because this is so comically easy. As I record this, Soluna actually just put out a video that is more heavily focused on strictly comparing Nefer with and without Lauma, and talking about whether Lauma is a quote-unquote necessary character. So if you want a more comprehensive video about that, go check that out, but this is kind of what I have to say on the topic. These carries are already comically overpowered, and a support adding more damage just kind of feels redundant. It's like we're coming full circle to the old Genshin days. Originally when we were talking about, well yeah, Chi-Chi has great healing, but why do I need healing if I just never get hit? Yeah, Lauma makes my Nefer deal more damage, but if I am already comfortably reaching the DPS requirements to clear content, why do I need a unit who all they will do is increase my DPS? Which may kind of sound like an insane thing to say, but like seriously, ask yourself, why do I need to increase my DPS? I don't need to increase my DPS. I'm not an Abyss speedrunner. I don't need dire clears. I like doing one full clear of the content and then doing a bunch of partial clears of Abyss or Stygian. Not Imaginarium though. Imaginarium takes too long to set up. It's reached the point where I promise I'm not like trying to be funny with this. I promise this isn't a bit. This is just genuinely me being insane. I might prefer playing Nefer without Lauma. All she's providing to the team is damage. My Nefer doesn't need more damage. She's doing just fine. I would maybe prefer to slot in a defensive unit or maybe another damage dealer. So if you mess up Nefer's rotations, which admittedly is kind of hard, she's kind of easy to play. If you mess up, you still get a more even damage profile. Or maybe you can include, I don't know, a unit without such migraine-inducing ER requirements. I mean, I've said before that I think Lauma is a boring unit that buffs an interesting archetype. So when she's instead buffing a unit that disables that interesting archetype, I don't think it's a surprise I find her boring. Now, I've been being very, very mean about dedicated units this entire time because, of course, this is more than just Lauma and Nefer. This is Flinzen and Effa, this is Escoffier and Skirk, this is Seatlali and Mawika. I've been going on and on about how unnecessary these dedicated supports are, but I really have to emphasize that this will not be true forever. I mean, I actually assume it will be true forever of whichever unit is currently on banner, but it is not true of the units that are on banner right now. Content will cycle out, they'll stop getting as good buffs, maybe the DPS caps will raise, and at that point, if you're playing a character into higher DPS check content, into content that doesn't mesh as well with their kits and causes them to lose out on DPS for whatever reason, when you're playing a character in suboptimal situations, that's when it can be valuable to get their dedicated support. And I would hope this goes without saying, but you're probably only playing a character in suboptimal situations if you're really a big fan of that character. So essentially, my take, pull whoever you want, and if you like them, then you can get their support and make them last a little bit longer. If you're like me and all of your favorite characters are the supports, then it doesn't matter. We're winning. All our favorite characters are cracked. Back to the video. Okay, let's finally talk about the kit. I think I'm going to start these videos with a little summary, just because I feel like it gives a little more context before I start talking about talents. Sorry I lied to you guys, but as it turns out, Nefer kind of is half as boring as I originally thought she was and said she was all throughout her pre-release cycle, because she is a bloom DPS. Unlike Nilou, who gets the damage from the blooms being triggered themselves, Nefer disables bloom damage altogether, and instead triggering bloom gives her a resource that allows her to do charge attacks which deal all of her damage. So let's get into how all that works. Now, I said she does charge attacks, but her normal attack talent is worthless. Wake up everybody, it's 6.1, they don't want you leveling your normals anymore. She's a catalyst unit, so they deal dendro damage, she can use them for application, but they are all attack scaling while she is all EM scaling. So unless you're triggering spreads, they're not going to deal any damage. And just like her weed-smoking girlfriend, she has a traversal mechanic within her charged attack, but unlike Lauma's deer farm, which is fairly fast and has a nice double jump for utility, Nefer's is slower than regular sprinting while also consuming stamina. As far as I can tell, it is literally pointless. Anyways, let's get on to her skill, which essentially all it does is she jumps forward, and then it gives her access to this special charged attack, granted she has the Verdant Dew, which is the resource she gets from triggering bloom. I guess I should take a look at them real quick. These little moon icons represent your Verdant Dews, and you can hold up to 3. As I went over in my Lauma video, which I was just wrong about a few things in that. I don't know why I thought this damage bonus buff affected regular bloom damage, because it clearly says only lunar blooms damage. So that's only the damage from her holdie and from Nefer's charged attacks. Anyways, back to Nefer. I went over in that video, you don't immediately get one verdant dew when you trigger the reaction. It's more that the meter slowly fills up for a set amount of time after you trigger it, which actually is a little more than it takes to fill one moon. As you can see, you get a moon plus a sliver. That's like 1.1 verdant dews. And of course, normally Nefer has just this kind of dumb run as her charge attack that ends in a little kick, but after using her skill, if she has this dew, her charge attack will convert into this little triple kickflip with these two clones that she gets. Of course, her two weed-smoking girlfriends. I love that her boss takes so long to aggro. It's so great. I can run around all over this arena. These charge attacks also have the added quality of life feature, where if you hold the button, she will automatically go through all of her verdant dew. While she's in her skill state, which it lasts as long as its cooldown, she can use up to 3 of these special charge attacks before it ends. She has 2 charges of this skill, and she uses them both in her rotation for a total of 6 charge attacks. The Nefer portions of the Phantasm performance damage are regular Dendro damage, as is the skill damage, but the Shade portion is all Lunar Bloom damage, which has very interesting implications for its scaling. Not only do these numbers ignore defense, so they are a little deceptively higher than they look, but EM scaling lunar reaction damage essentially has logarithmic scaling with EM. It's a reverse logarithm, so it gets exponentially worse, but it still starts out really strong, because EM as a stat gives Nefer 3 different things. Number 1, it increases the base value of the talent's damage. It very simply says here, it takes 153% of her EM and it deals that damage. If she has more EM, 150% of it will be more damage. Number 2, up to a point, she increases the base damage of Lunar Bloom. That means up to a number, I believe it is 1,000. I could just check this. I'm being lazy. I could just check this. 14 divided by 0.0175? It's 800, it's not 1,000, my bad, it's 800 EM. Up to 800 EM, her EM will scale the base damage of her Lunar Bloom damage, which is a flat multiplier on all of this damage. So that's just like an extra 14% damage. It's not damage bonus, it's not like a stat she already has, it's just 14% more damage on her Lunar Bloom damage, which to be fair isn't all of her damage, but it's the majority. The third thing that it does is it does the thing that EM always does. It gives reaction damage bonus, which happens to include Lunar Bloom damage. So up to 800 EM, she gets to triple dip in what EM does for her, and it gets insane value. In the right circumstances, 1 roll of EM is worth multiple times 1 roll of crit on Nefer. Now, EM is the only stat in the game with diminishing returns, as you probably think they are. Each point of EM gives less reaction damage bonus than the last. This scaling will never stop benefiting the same amount from EM, but both this increase and the reaction damage bonus increase will slow down, and also crit is the inverse. It gets more valuable the more of it you have. So yeah, fun little side tangent of the day. What stats are good are always relative. Oh yeah, also it doesn't scale with regular damage bonus. Now there is a lot of interesting stuff about this skill and her charge attacks that I want to get into, but let's look at the rest of the kit before we do that. She does technically have 2 modes, but in either mode, all of her teams play pretty similarly, so it's just about figuring out what she needs and finding units you enjoy that fill those slots. I've actually been thinking a little bit about Cole in this slot. No promises though. Anyways, let's talk about her Ascension 1 passive, which is the passive that defines these 2 playstyles. If she's in Ascendant Gleam, so that's with another Nodcry unit, using her skill will cause any Dendro cores to be converted into Seeds of Deceit, and it also converts any future cores that would be generated into extra Seeds of Deceit. Let's see one here. We have a Bloom core, use her skill, and this vine wraps around it, and it sits on the ground, and it essentially becomes inert. It can't be triggered by any element, and it won't explode on its own. And if it expires, it just disappears. So what can be done with these? Nefer, using her charge attack, will absorb any nearby seeds, and give her a little buff as indicated by this little UI element. These stacks are called Veil of Falsehood stacks, because everything needs a fucking name, and they just increase the damage that her charge attacks do, which of course that's her main source of damage. Additionally, at 3 stacks, she gains another 100 EM. You don't really have to worry about the whole bloom generation stack mechanic. Any team that has decent bloom generation will easily get her 3 stacks, as well as all 6 verdant dews for her 6 charged attacks. So, as I mentioned, this talent is what defines her 2 main playstyles. You can play her as the Soul Nodcry unit, which is more of an Alhaitham playstyle, where she does a little bit of talent damage herself, but she mostly just comfortably slots into a team that does a lot of reaction damage without interfering, and that is a solid enough playstyle that you can definitely clear with. But the second playstyle, the Ascendant Gleam one, the one that disables all bloom damage, is generally just going to be the one that's way better. This is her only incentive to be an Ascendant Gleam in her entire base kit, and while 24% damage bonus and 100 EM is a nice bonus, it's really not enough to give up the potential that bloom damage has. Rather, she has a lot of exterior incentives to be an Ascendant Gleam. Of course, there's her best in slot artifact set, which gives her 15% more crit rate and 10% lunar reaction damage bonus when in Ascendant Gleam. 2 of her best supports are from Nodcry and naturally bring her to Ascendant Moon Gleam. And while I know isn't great, we have a unit coming out very soon who probably will be. So if you want to use the buffs that they bring, then you will have to go into Ascendant Gleam. And just like Ascendant Gleam allows Nefer to use her set, it enables them, or any unit for that matter, to use Serenade. And of course, she just straight up gets Nodcry Resonance. It's lunar reaction damage bonus. So it's not that there's anything in her kit that says Nefer does a million billion more damage if she's in Ascendant Moon Gleam, but there are a lot of converging factors that give her a million billion more damage in Ascendant Moon Gleam. And so there, she becomes a hyper carry where barely any other member of the team is contributing damage. Now let's bounce back to her burst. Her burst is as simple as they come. It's AoE Dendro damage. She is a character that is nuanced and flexible in gameplay, and for this type of character, I can appreciate this type of burst because it's DPS neutral. You can kind of just throw it out whenever you want, and it'll deal enough Dendro damage in AoE to justify its cast time and nothing more. So with bursts like these, you can kind of just hold on to them until you need AoE damage or until you need iframes, or actually for Nefer, she also sometimes just likes to stall to generate an extra verdant dew because it takes time to generate verdant dews, and I like using her burst to stall and get that up. There is no nuance in how her burst works, but there is nuance in how you can use it, and it's kind of just leave it up until you can find utility for it. The one real consideration about it is that it does consume her Veil of Falsehood stacks to give damage bonus. As a character who does most of her damage through lunar reactions, she doesn't build damage bonus, so her burst has to give a little bit naturally if it wants to deal reasonable damage, and to get that damage bonus, it consumes her Veil of Falsehood stacks, which will temporarily decrease her charge attack damage. As long as you have decent bloom generation, you'll be able to generate enough cores to get all her stacks back pretty fast, but again, just something to consider. Also, the animation is funny. Her girlfriends smoked so much weed that they turned green. Final passive, most useless. If Nefer's in her skill state for 5 seconds after a party member triggers a lunar bloom reaction, her Slither state will provide an additional verdant dew. We can see here, I have a little bit less than 1 verdant dew. If I go Ino skill, Lauma skill into Nefer, I should only trigger 1 bloom and only get 1 verdant dew, and therefore 1 charge attack. But if I just use my skill and hold charge attack, I'll use 1 charge attack, automatically go into Slither mode, and then generate a verdant dew to do a 2nd charged attack. Practically almost all of her teams will generate enough verdant dews for her to do 6 charge attacks across her rotation, but just in case things don't line up exactly correctly, this passive gives you a tiny bit of extra leeway. And it's kind of just leave it up until you can find utility for it. It's saying, hey, if you're already meeting the conditions to get a verdant dew and do a charged attack, you can just have a charge attack. This one's on us. You can take that one. Even if you don't quite have a verdant dew, we'll just give it to you. You can have that one. Cool quality of life is how you should think about it. Anyways, there it is. That's the kit. And I guess I should go into the interesting stuff about her. Because yeah, fundamentally, she's not really that interesting of a character. She disables bloom damage to deal charge attack damage. What? That sounds kind of lame. I don't want to do that. But as I kind of started to talk about with her burst, Nefer is a really, really flexibly incredibly designed character. She pretty much always fills the same role, and she doesn't have many options for builds, but her moment-to-moment gameplay allows for a lot of skill expression and tomfoolery. First, let's just get into charge cancel stuff. So yes, you can just hold the charge attack button, and then Nefer will go through this long animation, or right after the first hit of regular Dendro damage, so the Nefer portion of the damage, right after you see that hit come out, you can dash cancel, and all 3 Lunar Bloom hits of the charge attack still go through. And it's a fair amount faster than just holding the button. And also, let's go back to the fact that her skill is split into 2 charges. It's not 1 use every 18 seconds that gives you 6 charge attacks. It's 2 charges of 1 use every 9 seconds that give you 3 each. Which this does 2 things. It allows you to split your rotation for whatever reason. 1 skill on Nefer, do your charge attacks, do something else, then go 2nd skill on Nefer, do more charge attacks. You can use that flexibility to refresh buffs or deal damage on another character, trigger a reaction of some sort, But the second thing that 2 skill charges allows you to do is speed up your rotation. Thank God we have Flynn's here to make the perfect comparison. Flynn's is exactly the unit that I'm talking about. His skill is on a 16-second cooldown. It gives him another skill that gives his burst that's on a 6-second cooldown. So he gets 2 mini bursts. The first one will always be in the first 6 seconds of his skill. The second one will always be in the next 6 seconds of his skill. And his rotation will always be limited to 16 seconds because he needs to go into his skill to access his mini burst. Even better, 6 seconds. If I want to here, I can rush out all my charge attacks and go right into my second skill and be done within, I don't know, what was that, 8 seconds? Even better, 6 seconds. And even after that, I can start my next rotation early because I'm limited by 2 9-second cooldowns instead of 1 18-second. As long as I have 1 charge, I can at least start to rotate and maybe get another charge back by the time I'm done with the first. She is just an on-fielder that just does damage, but she kinda does it whenever she wants. She has decent AoE, she has fairly flexible field time that can be sped up or split if so desired. She has no energy needs and can keep a burst on cooldown for when she needs it. And even if you don't want to do any of this optimization stuff, she's still an incredibly easy and strong unit to play. Just hold the charge attack button and she does everything for you. In any case, you know I'm going to be playing her with Sethos. Thank you too. Oh god, it's been so long since I released a video, I'm so sorry. Beef Potato, Roberto Desu, Big Soup, Buffalo Milk, DB, SJ, Pyre's Flower, Aqua, Mudkip172, Zach ZDR, Do, Dotiz, Dorsal Fin from twitch.tv/dorsalfin1, Pegby, Rimpelitas, Najodo, and our newest supporter, byeeee. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, and I should make more videos soon. I don't know, I've been a little slower on the video making recently. I need to make sure that I'm staying motivated and like making things that I want to make. Thank you so much for supporting nonetheless, and I hope you all learned something. Have a lovely day.